This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based seller. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 77 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Liljenwall. Got producer Noah here with me. Folks, we are back with our first off-season episode following my week-long stint in LA for MLS Cup. Back in Seattle, back at the normal Lobbing Scorchers studio. It's been a heck of a week. Noah and I were down there for the Western Conference semifinals, and I ended up never leaving. So swindled my way into that one. I asked the powers that be. I said, I'm already in LA. Can I just stay for the game? And it worked.
The gracious powers said yes.
They said yes. So I've had a fun week, Noah. I was on the New York Red Bulls beat. That was the condition for me going was, it's funny, I covered the LAFC Cup in 2019 as well, and I was on the Philly Union beat that year. They don't give me, it's not like you're the Eastern Conference team. It's literally whatever team loses. That's who you cover.
That's fire.
So
you're the loser. I was an
honorary New York beat reporter for the week. We're going to talk about everything that went down there, just my experience of being there, but also the game itself on this show. It's a big show for us as a longtime dedicated LA Galaxy podcast, which is, a beat that we've been on all season. They are MLS Cup champions after beating the New York Red Bulls 2-1 at Dignity Health Sports Park in MLS Cup 2024. So we're going to do a little game review, kind of like we would do about a Sounders game, but about MLS Cup. And then we are going to do some offseason news. There's already been a bunch. We're going to give our takes on MLS MVP has been announced since we last recorded, and it was a pretty famous player that a lot of us have heard of, so we're going to talk about that. A lot of transfer news today, and then some Sounders headlines that we're going to hit. So it's going to be a jam-packed first episode back. Anyway,
when is it not?
I went really long on the intro right there, Noah. How are you feeling about our first off-season episode?
It feels good to be back in person with you. I missed you. I know you were out there, but I was like, man, all I want to do is pod with Ari. And LA was great, man. I love LA, and I also hate LA, but that was a really good time. And the Galaxy Stadium looked like it was popping, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if there's one broader takeaway from all this, just league-wide, there's been a lot of debate dating back to last year as to whether the LA Galaxy were back or not. And this year, I think most people agreed that they were, but if there was any debate as to that now, I mean, I think that's done and dusted, not just with how they played this season, but like you said, just the vibes and the atmosphere around the stadium for the games, but also just the team itself. It's crazy how fast the tables can turn in this league, and that's one of the takeaways that we're going to talk about later, actually, after our game review. Before we get to all that, though, I do, as always, have to let you all know that Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. Noah, do we have any new subs to thank?
We got 2 new subs, Van 4 and Keith Whistler. Thank you both for being number 49 and 50.
Oh, we hit the big
subs.
Let's go. 50 subs.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. We've been on the road to 50, it seems like, for
forever.
A while now. And it really, we love you all. We love you guys all so much. That is the best way to support the show and help us grow, is to sub to Sounder at Heart using our link. And can't emphasize enough how much we appreciate each and every one of you. If you have not done so yet, please subscribe to the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube. We're on the road to 800. MLS
close.
Cup, the West semifinals and MLS Cup have turned out to be fruitful for us. I think we were on the road to 700 or 750 maybe. I don't know, but either way, the channel continues to grow, and we appreciate the support on there. Help us get to 800. And
you can become a channel member now as well.
Oh yeah,
we've got some emotes and a little badge for if you comment, we'll see your comments. You can use little emojis of Ari and me and Paul Rothrock and Brian Schmetzer.
Yeah, become a YouTube member, and also follow our other socials. Our IG is doing pretty well lately, but doesn't have enough followers for my liking, and the same goes for our TikTok. So yeah, just give us a follow on it all, and go to sounderatheart.com/ls. Subscribe to Sounder at Heart. Okay,
never enough to plug. It's always all
right. Noah, let's talk some MLS Cup. We'll keep it pretty informal. I didn't really write out a whole lot of takeaways, but there's definitely it was a good game. And I think there's a lot to talk about, both in terms of the game itself and just implications moving forward. The LA Galaxy get the victory, and really, Noah, the game itself, the Red Bulls kind of chalked themselves early on in the game.
Yeah.
I always talk about these games with teams having specific tasks that they need to accomplish at different junctures in the game. And the New York Red Bulls really needed to make it through the first 10 to 15 minutes of this game without conceding and without losing control of the game state, and they were not able to do that. Joey Paints and Dejan Joveljic each score within the first 13 minutes, and at that point, it looked like I thought it was headed to be a blowout.
Oh, yeah.
It really looked like the Galaxy were rolling, and they just weren't going to stop. Even without Ricky Puig, who tore his ACL against Seattle, they looked pretty much like the normal Galaxy. Gaston Brugman ends up getting named MVP, and that was the first correct note that Greg Vanney hit. There's a lot of talk as to whether Marky Delgado was going to start there, Marco Royce. He kind of puts Gaston Brugman in that spot, and he gets the assist on the Joey Paints goal, and he really just bossed the midfield the whole game. So really, the Red Bulls just put themselves in a hole that they couldn't quite dig out of, but I think you do have to credit them for the way they brought it back. Sean Nealis gets the goal right just a few minutes after the Dejan Joveljic goal. They get that one back off the set piece, and from there it was a toss-up and it was anyone's game, but it felt like they just they shot themselves in the foot one too many times early in the match.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was honestly, yeah, when that match kicked off and I saw those first 2 goals, I was like, oh no, we're headed for another 6-0 defeat. This is another LA Galaxy masterclass. The Red Bulls completely outclassed. And the other thing I thought was, man, I wish the Sounders were here right now.
I know. Well, that's what we were talking about on the post-West semis show, was that how we felt like that kind of that game was really for MLS Cup, and that turned out to be the case. And I think if the Sounders had managed a way to advance there, we're probably talking about, I think in all likelihood, nothing's guaranteed, but in all likelihood, we're talking about Seattle's 3rd MLS Cup right now. So that is frustrating, but I mean, I think you've got to give credit to the Galaxy for kind of being able to win in different ways in these last 2 games than they were for most of the season. For most of the season, this was a team that was known for its buzzsaw offense and kind of just all-out playing style, where they would leave themselves exposed at times and they would concede some goals, but they would just kind of overwhelm you with their attacking play. I think these last 2 games, that's my first takeaway here is defense still wins championships. They defended well these last 2 games. They shut Seattle out at home, and then the Red Bulls get 1 goal in the game. It's off a set piece, though, not from the run of play, and they really bared down, and they were able to absorb whatever the Red Bulls were able to throw their way in the second half. And so, when it came down to it, they really didn't win this title on the back of that attack. They didn't even have Ricky Puig in the title game. They won it on a really good goal from Dejan Joveljic against Seattle, and then a 15-minute flurry at the beginning of Cup, but really it was about bearing down and grinding it out after that. So I think they kind of showed that they are more multiple in how they can win games than we thought, and they got another Cup to show for it. That's their 6th one, extends what was already a league record.
Yeah, I mean, the the Red Bulls didn't look awful in this game either. I think they started off super flat, and that's like, you can't, again, like you said, you can't do that against the Galaxy. The end there, that final 20 minutes, I was like, oh, this is going to go to extra time, because the Red Bulls were knocking and knocking and knocking. I mean, yes, credit to LA Galaxy's defense, but I also think the Red Bulls they got unlucky and they got flat-footed in the wrong time.
It was all about the Forsberg chance.
Yeah.
They had that's as clean a look as you could ask for. It's one that he's been hitting for them for most of the time he's played this season, and puts it just off the post. That goes in, which it very easily could have. It's an entirely different game. Maybe the Red Bulls pull off the upset. But again, I don't think they can feel too aggrieved based on how the early phases of that game went. They let it get away from them early and just couldn't quite bring it back. The other thing this made me think about was kind of the blueprint that the Galaxy used to get to this point. You know, I do feel like it's a validating result for Lobbing Scorchers in a way. You know, everyone's been getting their jokes in about the Galaxy podcast thing and how this might be a dub pod. Yeah, we've been getting into it too. It's a validating result for Lobbing Scorchers. Noah, you and I were both on this all season. We were on this all season. We were saying that the Galaxy deserved to be rated up with the Inter Miamis, the Columbus Crews, and the LAFCs of MLS. A lot of people told us that we were wrong. They mocked us. They made jokes about us being a Galaxy podcast. Folks, this is why we were talking about that, is because they played very well all season long, and I think we saw how. I mean, this was your pick.
This was my pick.
This was your pick. So, regardless of whether or not you like or dislike our status as a Galaxy podcast, we were saying it. We were saying it, and I think it speaks to the blueprint that they used in terms of turning their club around by just hitting on a couple of really big signings. Mm-hmm. Big money signings. They spent $20 million, over $20 million combined on Gabriel Peck and Joey Paints, and they hit on both of those. And when you complement Ricky Puig and Dejan Joveljic with wingers that good, you see the result. And I think, to me, my other big takeaways are that Will Kuntz, their general manager, and Greg Vanney are the gurus for the work they have done, turning around their roster in really it's
a season and a half.
Yeah, like less than 2 years is what I was going to say. That's not easy to do, but what it does show, I think, is that your fortunes can change quickly in this league. If you play your cards right and you hit on your signings and you show ambition, you can go from being a club like the Galaxy where they had fans at games protesting. Mm-hmm. They had banners Klein out.
Yeah.
They were saying that they weren't going to go to games, and they were doing like silent walkouts at games until they got back to their glory days where they were competing for and winning MLS Cups. And they got to where they're at now, like less than 2 years later. So, I mean,
it can
things change. The tables can turn quickly.
And it can't be understated how important that the fans were in all of this. I mean, they really did put a pressure on the Galaxy front office and say, like, yo, this is unacceptable. And I'm not kidding you. They listened, and look what happens. Record-setting 6th MLS Cup with a team that is unlike any team in this league right now in terms of just like star power. And like, I understand that Inter Miami is one thing, but I feel like LA Galaxy is doing the same thing, but with a different set of players, like younger players that maybe have more upside and, you know, maybe aren't as proven. But you have Ricky Puig, who is a Barcelona product, who could be playing, in my opinion, in like basically any club in the world. And he is driving that engine. He's so bought into the club. He said at the trophy ceremony thing, he's like, I'm going to be in LA forever. And they're building that kind of culture. And I think that's like, as an MLS fan, you can hate the Galaxy. I get it, especially our LAFC fans here. You can hate the Galaxy, but you have to respect what the club was able to do when they listened to their fans and when they really hit on 1.5 transfer windows, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you guys, take the opportunity to tell you guys just a little bit about what it was like being down there, because I was
boots on the ground.
I was boots on the ground all week. I got to go to Red Bulls training. They were training out where LAFC trained, so I got to talk to Dylan Nealis. I got to talk to a couple other guys, and that was it's always kind of cool getting to see how other teams do things and sort of talk to their players, talk to John Tolkien for the first time, and then also got to do a little Galaxy stuff. I was at John McCarthy's presser. I might be in the background of an Apple TV documentary. I signed a waiver that they can use my face if they want, so you might see me on Apple TV. We'll see about that. But I also I had to do the losing locker room after the game because my assignment was to write the Red Bulls Cider article, and this was my second time. I guess my third time being in an MLS Cup losing locker room because I was also at the one in Toronto that Seattle lost, and it's always a bit of an interesting experience. The one, the Philly one in 2022 after that LAFC Cup, that was honestly tougher than this one. I don't know. I mean, whoever remembers how that game went, that was about as gut-wrenching a loss as you can have, because I think Philly really felt like they could have and should have won that game. Yeah. I think the Red Bulls in this game, Cameron Harper was talking to us about it after the game, but he was like, I mean, we give up 2 terrible goals in the first 15 minutes, and that's a hole that's pretty hard to dig out of. And kind of, I think, acknowledging in a way that they can't really contend that they deserved to win the game based on how they started it. Mm-hmm. The Philly one, man, I went back there and they were just... I mean, they were not happy to see us. They were not happy to see us, and that was awkward. I made it out of there okay, but it was definitely awkward. This one, I bring that up because the Red Bulls guys, they were very professional. John Tolkien sat there. He took questions from us. He didn't snap at anybody. He answered them to the best of his ability. Cameron Harper did that as well. Emil Forsberg did that as well. I can always appreciate when a player, after a tough loss like that, is willing to stand and answer questions. Credit to the Red Bulls guys for doing that. Credit to their team as well. It was a heck of a playoff run for them.
Yeah,
no one picked
joke.
them to make it to MLS Cup. And they proved a lot of people wrong as well. They're the lowest seed to ever make it to MLS Cup. They were playing with house money, I think, in a way. But I think what really stung for them was they had a chance to kind of buck the narrative that kind of hangs over their club of being a very successful club. They've set the league record for consecutive playoff appearances, and they've won 3 shields, but their reputation is that they always bomb out in the playoffs. They lost MLS Cup in 2008. Now they've lost this MLS Cup. So that's still hanging over them, which that's, I think, what they're the most frustrated about. But really, man, they got closer to picking this game off than I would have thought based on how it started.
Are they the final original club to not have won? Because it was San Jose.
I believe there's 3 originals.
KC, Dallas, Rapids. Okay, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, either way, like, it's a year where they definitely were not expected to make it. If they could have picked off this game sort of like Seattle managed to in 2016 when they went in as an underdog against Toronto and were able to snake the PKs.
Yeah.
They could have been done with that. Yeah. So,
well, I think it's like you said, those early 2 goals sold the game. And I think most people knew that going into halftime was like, what's going to happen is either the Galaxy are going to put this game away or maybe it'll go longer. But, just exactly like what happened, I feel like, with Seattle and Galaxy, it's going to come down to one moment. And if I'm a betting man on who's going to score in that one moment, it's going to be the LA Galaxy. So,
yeah. The Galaxy celebrations got pretty rowdy. Ricky Puig was very happy. There was a funny moment where, did you see they put him in one of the little clothes basket things?
Or it was little drink containers or something.
They were pushing him around. He was slamming beers and smoking cigars. He was blowing huge smoke rings out of his cigar. He was getting lit, and I think deservedly so. I mean, that guy, he put it all out there for them this season, and I'm sure it was killing him to not be able to play in that game. But
him on the touchline with his suit and tie was so sick.
And every time they showed him on the screen at the stadium, the whole crowd went nuts. The crowd was it was live all game. Warren G was performing. Noah, you're not going to know what that means, but he performed "Regulate." Some of you out there, you're gonna know that reference. They had Warren G. They had DJ Slander at the Sounders game, so it's been happening at Dignity at Health Sports Park. I think just like history and legacy wise, I was also kind of thinking about Greg Vanney's status in the Pantheon. I think if you look at his body of work and what he built at Toronto FC, taking them from a laughingstock bottom feeder to an Eastern Conference powerhouse that won a treble in 2017, MLS Cup, Canadian Championship, and Supporters Shield. And then he leaves there to take the Galaxy job. They become a total joke again, and he builds the Galaxy back up this fast. And I think he really has established himself as like one of the best team builders, culture builders that we have in the league. And it's no accident that both of the last two clubs that he's been at, he's managed to get to the top in a pretty short period of time. It's definitely not a coincidence that Toronto FC got really good when he was the coach and started sucking again as soon as he left.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely like a full circle moment for the project that he put in at the Galaxy. And I think he's definitely like, he's making a case for like an all-time great MLS coach with his resume now with this cup.
All right, I got to pose it to you. I know this is going to be a little dramatic, but you know I'm here for a clip. Greg Vanney versus the one and only Wilfried Nancy. Who is the better coach?
Ooh, that's kind of a good debate. I feel like they excel at different things. I think Wilfried Nancy is like your traditional tactical savant. Like what he's elite at is the nuts and bolts, the X's and O's of the actual game, like formations and scheming stuff up, like all that stuff. I take Wilfried Nancy. Greg Vanney, as far as culture building, like I mentioned, building a team, having an eye for talent, like knowing how to build an MLS roster, knowing how to assemble an MLS attack, like he's done, him and Will Kuntz both with the Galaxy. Like if I had a roster that was already set with good players like the Crew did, and I felt like I just needed a tactical mind to get over the top, then I would go with Wilfried Nancy. If I'm starting from the ground up like the Galaxy were, and they need someone to overhaul their roster and oversee like an entirely new project and like turn the page, then I think Vanney's the guy for that. So I know that's a cop-out answer, but I think they are like, it's two different skill sets that they excel at, like genuinely.
I'm gonna go with Greg Vanney. You know why? Because he's got a skill set, and this isn't. I guess this is very specific to MLS because I don't know how he would perform outside of MLS. Which, like, I don't know, maybe someone give him a shot. I think it would be worth it. But the fact that he has consistently taken teams from being a joke to being successful, I think is way more eyebrow raising and important and like hard than being a good tactical manager. I think, like Wilfried Nancy can slot just about anyone into his lineups, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to complete that, you know? So I gotta say, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna just pick him. I'm gonna say Wilfried Nancy, or not Wilfried Nancy. I'm sorry. Greg Vanney is my pick there.
That's definitely an interesting debate. If anyone's got takes on that, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Anything else to say about MLS Cup? I know we're probably going to take some heat for praising the Galaxy too much, but you know,
we told you so. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like it's the Galaxy podcast thing, you know. People out there didn't like it, but it was based on something, you know. Sometimes we know of what we speak, okay?
Every once in a while.
And, like, I didn't pick them to win the cup because I'm a coward, but...
you wanted to, though.
I did...
One of us did.
I did to start... I think I can take credit for starting the narrative that Lobbing Scorchers is a Galaxy podcast.
Correct.
So, like I said, validation for us. Since we last recorded... Lionel Messi was named MLS MVP. So this is old news, but we hadn't talked about it yet. And it was a hot button issue for a while, whether he was actually going to win it or if they were going to give it to Cucho or Lucho or any of the Luis Suarez. There's some other candidates. I don't think we need to spend all that much time on this because we debated it ad nauseum at the time, other than to say, I think this was very obviously the right choice. You're putting him up against guys that put up not as good of numbers as he did in half the minutes.
Yeah.
I have not understood the debate about that for a while. It's a soapbox that I went on when I felt like I shouldn't have had to, but it's clearly the right choice to I voted for. And I really, I don't see the counter argument.
People were getting so mad online about this when it came out, and I kind of expected
doing MLS
that.
clown emoji.
Yeah. It's like, oh, of course they would pick Messi, and then they were putting up like Ricky Puig's stats, like, oh, Ricky Puig is better in every category, and I'm like, okay, but I'm sorry. Or they were like, less goals than Benteke, less assists than this person, X, Y, and Z, and I was like, yeah, like I don't think the MVP every single year is going to win every statistical category, but I promise you if Messi played the same amount of minutes as those people, he would have broken that. He probably would have won the Golden Boot. He probably would have had the most goals plus assists. He probably would have had the most assists. He would have won MVP. He probably would have won whatever else. I don't know. Is there an attacking player of the year? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he did have the best stats. That's the crazy thing. He had 36 goal contributions.
Yeah.
No one else had that, and all the other guys who were in the conversation had double the minutes, which it's really that kind of output was. I know he's been doing it at every team he's ever been on, or like all the Barcelona teams he was ever on. He did that every year, but it was impressive to watch this year without a doubt. We did have, so I thought today was going to be a light and boring day in the world of MLS. It was my first day back in reality working post MLS Cup, and there was a lot of transfer news already going on. So we're going to stay on top of that all offseason. We've already got some news to talk about, though. We're not going to hit on all the minutia going on. There's a lot of GAM being traded for TAM type of stuff going on
Whatever
right
that
now. So like, we're not going to be talking about every single transaction, but even today there was stuff worth talking about. I think the biggest one was Orlando City has sold Facundo Torres to Palmeiras. So that's one of the better players in the Eastern Conference who Orlando City are now going to have to replace. I don't know exactly what bag they got for him, but I imagine it was a pretty big bag. He's a very highly thought of prospect.
I think it was like a club record.
Yeah.
Undisclosed, but club record. So
Orlando City gets a bag. We'll see what they do with that, but they are going to have to replace him because he was the centerpiece for them this year. So that's a storyline to track in the Eastern Conference. And then also, we should talk about this Philadelphia Union Colorado Rapids trade. This was, I think this is going to be my favorite trade of the offseason. Tom Bogert reports that the Philadelphia Union have traded all of their super draft picks for the next 3 years to the Colorado Rapids in exchange for $350,000 of general allocation money. So that comes out to 8 picks over 3 years, including 3 first-round picks. The Philadelphia Union, noted not into the super draft,
no.
I guess. They are a team that has you can skip super draft picks, and Philadelphia was notorious for being a team that did that like pretty much every pick or most of their picks for the last few years. So it's not really surprising to me that they would want to offload all their picks. I'm not sure I fully understand the Rapids stocking up on super draft pick. To me, it doesn't seem like stocking up on super draft picks is especially wise in any given year because it's known to be the player acquisition mechanism that has by far the most thin talent pool.
Yeah,
and
easily.
It's becoming increasingly not relevant.
I'm surprised it's still around.
I mean, you can always find like Christian Roldan, super draft pick.
But that was also so long ago. If you're going to talk about in the 10 years, I think it was probably 10 years ago? Has to be.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I think there was still a lot of quality. Now, with the amount of teams and the amount of money going into scouting and college scouts or the academy system and Next Pro and all of this stuff being built out,
college soccer in general is just not as much of a pipeline to to the professional level,
which is,
as it used to be.
I mean, you can look at notable examples though. Like Charlotte got the Penn State. I think he's a defender who played a bunch of games for them this past year. I'm totally blanking on his name, but he was a hit out of the super draft, and I think he was in like the 6th round or something.
The way I think of it is every year there's like a handful of players, probably around 5 to 8. Seldom much more than that players that can legitimately crack a first team roster, and probably even less than that who actually get consistent first team minutes. It still happens. It's pretty rare, but I guess that's kind of like, I mean, I bring this trade up because it's like a good MLS meme trade, but I really actually am not quite sure I understand just the strategy of stocking up on these picks. We'll see what the Rapids do with them. The super draft is later this month, and I have to work it, so I actually am going to know what's going on with that.
I feel like, okay, yeah, so the guy who I was mentioning is Andrew Privet.
Yeah.
They picked him 69th overall, which nice. But I feel like this is like they're drawing up like a 18-leg parlay. They're like, bro, hear me out. $350,000 we give these guys, and we've got 3 seasons of picks, bro. We just got to hit on one, bro. We just got to hit on one and we can make our money back, bro. I swear. Like, it's addict shit. Like, what is this?
Yeah. And, I mean, the last time I saw a team do this was like early MLS days, FC Cincinnati. Remember that? They stocked up on a bunch of super draft picks, and that famously did not really pan out for them. I'm going to be doing a lot of transfer tracker work for the website all off season, so I'll have all that news for you guys. I think those are the most important ones that I wanted to highlight from today. All right, we had some Sounders news to hit, and then that was all I had written down. So maybe we're going to just have a short little first off season episode today. But there are a few Sounders based headlines that we got to hit before we get out of here, Noah. Number one. The Galaxy winning actually clinched Seattle a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot. The way that happened is
math.
It becomes and I shouldn't be explaining it in that case. But a bunch of other clubs qualified through other means that basically meant that Seattle's position on the Shield table, as I understand it, means that they qualified with the Galaxy's MLS Cup victory qualifying them.
Yeah.
So they needed the Galaxy to win to get into this competition, and now they're in it. So there's a few implications for that. One of which is that Seattle's just going to have a lot of games next year. They got the Club World Cup too. There's Open Cup and Leagues Cup. We'll see if they opt out or are like exempted from some or any competitions to
potentially
account
Leagues
for
Cup from what I've heard.
Yeah, so like something like that could happen. But even if that does happen, it's going to be a hectic year. They're going to need to lean on their depth a lot of times, and that makes this offseason all the more pivotal. But other than that, I mean, I always can get up for the CCC games. It's always an entertaining tournament. I watch a lot of the games, even in the years when Seattle isn't in it. I guess I'm looking forward to it in the sense that them having won it, to me, takes a lot of the pressure off. I think expecting them to win it again, it's such a hard tournament to win. Like, I don't know how high my expectations are for them, like making another run at it, especially with all the other competitions that they've got. But in terms of just content, these games always deliver. So I'm happy to have Seattle in it from that perspective.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get to go to, like, I don't know, maybe we go to a game in Mexico or something if it works out. Like, that'd be kind of sick.
Yeah, we'll see.
Lobbing Scorchers.
The draw is tomorrow, so we're gonna find out more on that then.
I love that tournament. I love that tournament.
Yeah, like
it's always insane. It's shithouse. It's early in the season, so everyone's tilted. It's great.
It's CONCACAF at its apex.
It's perfect.
Is what it is. And like you think you've seen it all, and every year it comes in with 15 new things that you've never seen before. I guarantee you next year, in the Sounders games and in other games, it's going to be chaos.
And I'm like interested because this is a competition that, like, while it may not be reasonable to assume the Sounders will win it, it does feel a lot more winnable than the Club World Cup, which I think we should talk about the draw. We didn't even have that written down, but we should talk about that.
You're right. Just that.
Feels impossible.
All right. Noah, do you want to break down the group that Seattle got for the Club World Cup? Because
Absolutely.
that's a good point.
Yeah. So Seattle had a really fun draw.
It's going to be a great group, guys. It's going to be really...
Seattle has been officially dubbed into Group B, and this group is being called the Group of Death, for those who don't know yet. We will be playing Paris Saint-Germain, Atletico Madrid, and Botafogo.
Yeah, so the best team in France.
Yep.
One of the best teams in Spain.
Third best team in Spain, I would say.
Best team in Brazil.
Yeah. Who just won Copa Libertadores and just won the league.
Yeah. So, and then do you happen to have Inter Miami's group by chance?
Oh, I do have Inter Miami's group by chance here. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Palmeiras, Porto, and Al Ahly.
Isn't that funny?
It's a little funny.
Yeah,
I still think because like Inter Miami is going to open this tournament against Al Ahly, someone who we are intimately familiar with.
Yeah.
That is one of the fastest football teams I have ever seen in my life. I don't know about you. I don't know if you remember that game. They are quick, man. And I'm sorry. That Inter Miami defense is going to be no match. I could totally see that being a blowout.
Well, you think Al Ahly is going to
I think Al Ahly is going to blow out Inter Miami.
We'll see how that take ages. I want to see what Inter Miami does over the offseason. I got to imagine they know what their weaknesses are, and Chris Henderson's going to try and address them. But they have to do that effectively in order to solve what ailed them last year. I still think that might be a little bit of recency bias with what we saw from Inter Miami in the playoffs. They still just set the points record, and I think in any given competition, they are liable to just ride their insane attack to results over any of these teams in this group. I think Inter Miami is going to be competitive against. Seattle's group, I mean, it is pretty hard to see a scenario where they make it out of that group. I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but it's just I'm kind of going into the Club World Cup with the mentality of the goal is to acquit yourselves well, compete with dignity, don't embarrass yourselves, don't set the league back 5 decades by doing something crazy or something stupid out there. But if they don't make it out of this group, I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, this is a loaded group. I don't even really know that much about all these teams right now, but just in terms of name value, I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
I mean, it's a good marketing point for the Sounders to bring some people in that I think you can be like, okay, listen, come in this transfer window and you'll get to play in the Club World Cup against these teams, and we're going to go and compete for Champions League. And, this is how close we were to winning the league as well. I think there's a good marketing perspective from it. I think there is one potential that could allow the Sounders to get through this. It's if there's somewhat of a strike with the FIFPro players. I don't know if you've heard about this at all, but there was some rumblings that players were really upset about how many more games they were going to be playing in Europe, and a lot of the European players are represented by FIFPro. It's a lot of vibes-based feelings around that, so who knows? But there could be basically like a small boycott from certain players, or you have games where you have a thing where like we play Botafogo in the first round. Maybe by the grace of God, we get away with a draw, right? And then Atletico and PSG play, and that one of those teams gets blown out, and then or like Atletico blows out PSG, and then they like rest some players against Seattle. Like there's a potential where maybe they could get out of the group, but I will be at every single one of these games and be so stoked to see the Sounders play against them. But oh my God, this is so
That's
brutal.
what I was going to say is what I'm going to try and go into it. Like, I know people are feeling cynical about it, feeling cynical about the group and just the competition in general. I'm going to try and go into it just to appreciate the novelty of you're never going to see a situation where Seattle's going to play PSG other than like a tournament.
Not in a meaningful
like this.
game.
And I think with the expanded format, you actually get these games. Whereas the last time they had to beat Al Ahly to be in a position to play a Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Which that's I would have liked to have seen that, like I said, just for the novelty. So regardless of how it shapes out, it's at least it's something that you're not going to see in any other competition. So we'll get that if nothing else.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's going to be fun. And there's 6 total matches, I think, being played at CenturyLink. So, or Lumen. Sorry everyone. There's, so you have like you basically have like a week and a half, 2 weeks of just incredible soccer being played in the Pacific Northwest in the lead up to getting to watch the World Cup here as well. It's like, it's an exciting, fun thing. It'll be in the summer. Everyone loves the summer here. I'm stoked for it, man. I'm stoked for it.
We had some roster movement. Seattle Sounders roster movement. The end of season moves were announced since the semifinals defeat at LA Galaxy. The first headline from that, the Raul Ruidiaz departure has been made official. We already talked that. I mean, the writing was on the wall with that. We already talked about the storylines with it on the last show. But shout out to Raul. It was a hell of a run. One of the best players that's ever played for the club. The best number 9 that's ever played for the club. The decline in productivity this season should not and does not overshadow that, in my opinion. He's delivered in the form of trophies, an MLS Cup and a Champions League, scoring goals that keyed both of them. So you really can't ask for much more than that from your big-time DP number 9 that you signed and had on the team for 4 or 5 years. I think he delivered in every way, and I think it's unfortunate how it ended. I would have liked him to get a better send-off, but shout out to Raul, always and forever.
Yeah, it kind of felt like it felt like the Ladero send-off a little bit. It just wasn't, it didn't feel right, you know? And Jeremiah talked about this on the last episode, which I highly recommend you guys go watch, about Raul at the end of the game was just standing there kind of soaking in his final moment as a Sounder, like knowing how close he was to bringing one more trophy, knowing that his last season, he wanted to, you could tell he wanted to do more and just was not happy with where he was. And it felt like that with Nico a lot too. And I think those two players are the two most important players in Sounders history. And it's exciting in a sense to be like, okay, now we're into this next chapter. We're going to see more exciting players who mean just as much as them, but it's always like, it's so hard to see them go. And yeah, Raul deserves the world, and it definitely was not a fitting end to his tenure here.
We'll see where he goes. I expect him to stay in MLS. I think another MLS club is going to take a flyer on him. And I think a change of scenery, there's a potential at least that it could rejuvenate him. He's not that old. He's 32, man. Okay, so like number 9s like that, they can play into their 30s sometimes. And he looked cooked this year, but sometimes you see a guy go to a new team and it's like a second win. So we'll see if that happens. Also among those departing, Soda Kitahara, Dylan Tevez, and Nathan. Kitahara and Tevez did not get a lot of time this last year, so I think that's a situation where they're in all likelihood more keen for opportunities where they might get a chance to compete for more minutes than they would here, so that makes sense. Nathan was one where I think we all thought that he would be departing on the number that he was on. But like that signing just didn't work out because he was not healthy all year.
When he played, he played great.
Shout out for his performance in the playoffs. Like he actually stepped up when needed. But just kind of based on how this year went availability wise, you definitely couldn't have him on the same number that he was on this year, which I think was like $500K.
Yeah, that's a little too much.
I think that's the logic behind those 3 departures. And then they're also reportedly in talks with Albert Rusnak and João Paulo. So let's do the should they be brought back debate. And let's start with JP and then do Rusnak. I think the idea is they're trying to find a number or an offer that makes sense to bring JP back. And I mean, I think the situation is as simple as if you can get him on a number that is less than what it is now, with the idea that he's going to be more of a rotational piece and a mentor to the young guys than a guy that you depend on game in and game out, then I think absolutely JP, he's a Sounder through and through, man. Like, he's given a lot to the squad as well. I mean, they don't win Champions League without him. He gave it all in that tournament. literally like that. His ACL gave out in the final, and they won that like with him out of the game. But I just feel like you can't break the bank for him at this point. But I could see a scenario where he's back on the team next year.
It's a tough one for me because I'm on the fence about this. I think that he is a great player, but I don't think he's had it this last season. And I think even as a rotational player, we saw some errors that he made when he would come in that led to some chances and to some negative outcomes. And I think we need some new blood in that position. I think we both have talked about potentially it would be so sick to see them bring in like a bruiser 6 or something like that to fill his position. And I really do think that the Sounders need a lot of new blood. Like, as much as possible, if they can get just a different feeling, just a different mix of players while keeping, that core together. I think for me, yeah, maybe if you can get him on the right number, but I still think they should probably move on from him.
Albert Rusnak, Nico Moreno, I believe, was reporting that he is not going to take a pay cut for a TAM deal, and that if he comes back, it's going to be on a DP contract, which there's no reason for him to say anything else in that negotiation. If you look at his output this year, despite what the Brigade might tell you, he has every leg to stand on with that. I do think we're a pro Rusnak podcast, but I do think there is still a fair debate to be had as to whether or not you want him as a DP. I'll just say again, my take on it is I really don't mind him as a DP. I think he justified that price tag this year. I don't think the issues that this team had on offense this year were attributable to the number 10. I like how he runs the offense. I think he brings a unique variable with his set pieces that paid a lot of dividends this year. Seattle was excellent on set pieces this year, which that has not really been the case before he got on the team.
No.
The Ladero era, the set pieces were they were hit or miss. Like Nico hit them. When he hit them right, he hit them right, but he's nowhere near the free kick taker that Rusnak is. So I think for me, a guy who pushed 30-goal contributions across all comps, has an elite skill that separates him in terms of his set-piece delivery and his wide service and just his all-around production and body of work. And he was also very durable this last year. So I don't know. I just don't hate it as much as some people might. To me, it's much more about the pieces around Albert Rusnak and Jordan Morris than it is about replacing them. Now, like I said on the last show, if you can find a player of the skill set, age, and general profile of Ricky Puig, then that is an upgrade. But I'm telling you, failing that, it's not as easy to find that upgrade as a lot of people are making it sound. A guy who can run the offense like Rusnak can and put up as many many numbers as he does, you can go sign a replacement, but there is no guarantee. You're taking a risk that you just don't really need to take, in my opinion. So I can understand, I guess, the argument that he's a TAM player more than a DP, but I also just think that he did well as a DP this year. I don't know. Am I tripping?
No, I mean, I think that there's more directly addressable positions where you can get drastically better at. I think that's what people don't understand about Major League Soccer. It's like they want the best superstar in every single position. And I think a lot of times they don't realize that, like, yes, your DP slots are important in all of this, but Albert Rusnak he was 15th in goals and assists combined. So he's top 50% of the league, top 50, top 1% of players in production as a number 10. Okay, what are the pieces around him that could get him up 2, 3, 4 spots? Rack him 10 more assists over the year, right? Like, I don't think he was the problem. I think that there were pieces around him or formations that weren't working for him. You now have a whole season of evidence that he can produce. You can look at exactly the places that when he wasn't producing, okay, what went wrong? And then you go and you address that. I just you're not going to upgrade super heavy there. And it's like, respectfully, this is a Paul Rothrock podcast, but he was starting every single game. You don't think that a DP winger or something like that wouldn't be a massive upgrade over Paul Rothrock? I mean, we love Paul Rothrock on this podcast, but it's like if you can.
I mean, I don't even think you need to bring Rothrock into it. Rothrock was producing this year.
That's true. That's true.
The De La Vega thing was where the black hole on the roster production turned out to be. It certainly was not Rusnak. Also, just to address the narrative out there that there's a narrative that he is a stat padder that does not perform in big games. I mean, if that's your narrative, that's fine. But then you got to explain some things. I mean, you got to explain the goal that he scored in Champions League against New York City FC that the Sounders might not win Champions League without. Was that not a big game? You got to explain. You got to explain.
Doesn't count,
game this year against the LA Galaxy in Leagues Cup. Whatever you think of Leagues Cup,
doesn't count.
It was a knockout game against an elite team in MLS that went on to win MLS Cup. He dominated them on set pieces all day in that game. That was a big game. I could keep going down the list. Those are just two off the top of my head, but
the three against Columbus were fraudulent, Ari. They don't count. They don't count.
Okay, that one, the ones on Sean Zawadzki, maybe that was stat padding. Okay, but like it's pretty hard to stat pad 10 goals, 16 assists in league play plus whatever he got across all clubs.
I don't care that he had 2 assists and 1 goal against Pumas.
I'm sorry, that's just not a thing.
I don't care that he had 2 assists and 1 goal against Pumas. I don't care. That's a bad team.
Bad team. Stat padding against Liga MX's team.
Fake.
There's like, I mean, I'm gonna actually talking about this now is gonna make me go through and go down the list. But like, there's like he scored against Real Salt Lake this year. He scored against LAFC not this year, but 1 year. There's a lot. Okay, there's a lot.
It's all fake.
It's all
stat
fake.
padding.
But anyway, there'll be time to keep litigating the Rusnak thing, but. I think for now my take is that I don't know. I would bring him back.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as they're gonna negotiate. It's gonna be, I think they're going to bring him back. I don't even think it's a question. I think it's a question of for how long, and for what number, and what do they think they can do? Is their plan to bring him back for next year and then shop him around after that and try and trade him? Is it, like I don't think it's reasonable to think that the Sounders will not re-sign him.
Yeah, it just seems unnecessary to me. And really, I want to see that spot either go to a big-time winger or a big-time number 9.
Give me a 9, baby.
Yeah, that to me is the bigger priority than
easier
replacing
to sign a 9.
the 10 for no reason.
Also, like if you think I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going on to this because this is like our bread and butter of this podcast. But if you think it's so easy to just drag and drop any number 10 into a team and have them overnight understand exactly what this team is going to do, understand all of the different players around them, build rapport, build like that leadership.
Chemistry.
I'm sorry, you're dumb. You're stupid. You've never played soccer in your life and you've never like understood this, because if you have going into this next competition season, you have Club World Cup, CCC, Open Cup, regular season, Leagues Cup, some other cup that they haven't announced yet, but I'm sure they're going to invent. It's like, respectfully, man, you start the first, right after preseason, they're going to start playing meaningful games. If you get someone's not going to get integrated just in 3 weeks of preseason.
You do really have to think about that, because you got Club World Cup coming right up, and you're right. Like anytime there is any sort of new signing, they have to integrate both on the field and in the locker room, and that takes time.
Yeah.
There's a honestly
look at Evander.
There's a set amount of reps that you realistically need on the training ground before you can even hope to have like the type of chemistry that you would need to really do well in an event like the Club World Cup or these early Champions League games that they might have to play. That I absolutely think that has to factor into the consideration, because these games are coming up, and you do have to bolster the roster and integrate those guys already anyway. Like if you bring in a new number 10, you're overhauling the whole attack. I don't really know if that's the best strategy with how the schedule's set up right now.
Yeah.
So
that said, sign Evander for the bit.
Sounder. All right. I mean, that was all I had written down. No, I feel like we must be missing something. Might be a short episode.
But I think we went an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
Close to.
All right. Yeah. Then that's fine. We can call it right there. Thank you all so much, as always, for tuning in. It was really good to be back in the normal Lobbing Scorchers studio, back in the city of Seattle. I had fun in LA, but I'm glad to be back home. And I'm excited, and we're both excited to keep the content grind rolling over the off season. Mm-hmm. We're not going to stop. We're planning on filling the void. We've got ideas. We're going to stay on top of the transfer beat, of course. We're also going to try and get more guests on over the off season. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've been wanting to do more of anyway, and not done a good enough job of being proactive and lining people up. So I'm going to try and do that this off season already. Have a couple things in the works with that.
Big player interview coming.
Oh yeah.
This next week.
Big player interview coming. So we're going to, trust me, the content is not going to stop. The grind never stops. No days off. I mean, we're going to take some days off, especially like around the holidays. I'm probably going to take some days off, but we are going to keep recording, putting out the show. And Noah, I think we should do some live streams this offseason.
Oh, for sure.
Too.
We'll plan some.
We are planning on getting that train rolling. For those of you who are wondering about that, I know there's demand for live shows, and we are going to fire those up. It's a lot of tech for me to learn, but we are going to do that as well. Like, comment, subscribe, write reviews, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, show Ricky Poosh, show Greg Vanny. Am I missing anything else?
This guy knows. No. Dante Van Zier? I don't know.
Until next time, we out. Peace.